Gotti. How's your man and them? Hope everybody's doing good. It's Friday. And we got week 0 of college football, by the way. So we got football back in the mix. We got boxing to talk about. No matchups this weekend besides Floyd Mayweather versus John Gotti 3. He's fighting the mob boss's son's son. And with each John Gotti, it's like each John Gotti seems to get worse. It's like you got John Gotti, and then you got John Gotti the second, who wasn't that good, and you got John Gotti the third. And Mayweather decided he wants to fight John Gotti the third. He wants to fight a mob boss's grandson. And that's where we're at, man. Sad times. Sad times. I saw Mayweather promoting this fight on his Twitter page, and it had like 270 likes on it. Just sad stuff. Sad to see where he's at. Go get your bag, chase your bag. But at the same time, man, worry about your brand. And I worry that Mayweather's brand is just seriously deteriorated over the years as he fights like this. Good Lord, man. Like, is this what it's come to? Is this what it's come to? I don't know. I don't know. Here's the question of the day. Would you trust Samson Luka Wicks to run your neighborhood snowball stand? So I want y'all to have at it in the comment section. Would you trust Samson Luka Wicks to run your snowball stand? Neighborhood snowball stand. Like if you wanted to, I would trust my kids to go to the curb and have a lemonade stand. I think they'd make money. I think they make profit. Would you trust that, say a lemonade stand that you wanted to set up on your front curb? Would you trust that if Samson Luka Wicks ran a profit and made some margins that he would bring them back to you? Would you trust that your neighborhood snowball stand would stay in business if Samson Luka Wicks were running it? Just a question. Just a question. Have at it in the chat. So that's the question of the day. What's up, brother boxing? Brother, Colorado football tried to get the Saudi Arabian money. LOL. They did. They chased that Saudi Arabian NIL bag. Yeah, they did. Benavidez' nickname should be Glass. It's Mr. Glass. It's Mr. Glass. Y'all ever seen that movie? Look at him. That's so sad. That's so sad. So he had a fight at 175 against Vodzik with a silent G, right? And Vodzik with a silent G had been retired since 2019 up until 3 quick fights against no names in 2023. And he's back, right? And I remember when Benavidez signed the fight, Vodzik with the silent G, all of the Benavidez pushers, you have cocaine pushers, but you also have Benavidez pushers. And they were pushing on us that Vodzik, what a dangerous opponent. I can't believe he's daring to be great, going up to 175. He's not waiting for Canelo. He's going up to 175. He's going to do damage at 175 because he's one of the greatest pound-for-pound fighters in the world. What happens? I'm watching early on in the fight, and Benavidez is having some success, and these dudes are on Twitter. Oh, my God. This looks like the greatest pressure fighter that ever lived. He's such a monster. Canelo is going to stay away from him. There's no way. There's no way everybody would. There's no way you would fight him. And what happens the second half of the fight? Mouth wide open. Can't put punches together, hanging on the ropes too long. And what we find out is, he had an arm injury coming in, right? Convenient. But also, he hurt his hands in the fight. And also, he has broken ribs. This dude's falling apart after one fight against a non-top 10 guy in the division at 175. He's falling apart. He's falling apart. Look at him. He's falling apart. Absolutely falling apart. Nope, I don't trust Samson. So DJ Mexicano de Texas does not trust Samson Luka Wicks to run his neighborhood snowball stand. Neither do I. If I had a business of any sort, I don't care what it is. Like I don't care. It could be the smallest business of all time. I wouldn't trust that dude to run it. I just wouldn't. That's a snake oil salesman. It's just unbelievable, the ineptitude of that team. And more on the Alan Dawson article on worldboxingnet.com. And good Lord, man, like these dudes. Have you heard anything on insurance call? Okay. I always get text during the show. Um, so this is where we're at with Benavidez's team, and I'm gonna talk about the Alan Dawson article in a minute because it highlights things. And there's something Steve Kim said on the roundtable last night that I've been alluding to for a while as well, and people need to pay attention to when it comes to Benavidez. Is he really who they built him up to be? Do people care about this guy at all, other than when Canelo's name is attached to him? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. First, let's say this. Yes, he's Mr. Glass. And thanks to Mr. T. Mr. T, this is Mr. T's work right here. Mr. T did this. He did this. I didn't want to share it, by the way. I didn't want to. I didn't want to do it. It was Mr. T. And by the way, live performance during the show from Beyonce. So look out for that as well. Or Taylor Swift, one of the two. Check this out. That's from my dad, and it's a certificate of authenticity comes with it. That's Roberto Duran right there. Signed Roberto Duran glove. Check that out. Beautiful stuff right there. The real deal. So shout out to my dad for that gift, Roberto Duran glove, one of the greatest to ever do it. So that's that. Let's talk about the Shakur news first, and then we'll get into the Samson Luka Wickowick stuff, and then we'll get into the Benavidez stuff in the 89.99 pay-per-view with Canelo. Shakur signs a 2-fight deal with Matchroom. I was wondering if this is a 1-fight deal, it's a multi-fight deal, so it's a 2-fight deal with Matchroom. And I don't know what they paid him. We'll see, but it's a Matchroom / Riyadh deal. And this is what I told people, because there were people out there saying that there's no market for Shakur out there. The money's not going to be there as he leaves Top Rank. When he leaves Top Rank, the money's not going to be there. And I said, there's always going to be, it just always seems to be a dude that comes into the boxing world that's willing to overpay fighters who don't deserve what they're getting, right? It just always seems to be the case. And Turki Al-Sheikh is that guy. The Saudis are that guy. And Shakur recognizes that. And this is I think a Matchroom / Riyadh deal. And the plan seems to be for the 2-fight deal for him to fight Joe Cordina, which is hilarious. Of course, it's hilarious. And the second straight fight where Shakur is going to be fighting a fighter coming off a loss. And then he's going to fight William Zepeda in February, apparently, either in the States or in Riyadh, because William Zepeda is not ready until 2025, which I don't understand. That's the plan. That's the plan. And I like that fight, by the way. I like Shakur versus Zepeda. But it just highlights what I've been saying, that Riyadh Saudis are going to be willing to pay Shakur. And, you know, I've had these discussions with D-Style. D-Style's like, he only wants exciting fight. Look, the pitch that they made to you originally about the Saudi project and Turki Al-Sheikh is wrong. It's propaganda. This isn't just a boxing fan with bad health who, you know, with the rest of his life just wants to put on good fights. He's willing to lose the money, just wants to put on good fights. For the boxing fans, he's just a boxing fan with a Make-A-Wish project before he dies. And that's not what this is. This is the Saudis. This is the government putting on these fights, and they're willing to throw a bunch of money at these fighters in order to get fights, right? And they're willing to pay Shakur. And I knew they would be willing to pay Shakur. And they're willing to pay Shakur. And we'll see where the 2 fights go. And I'm sure that'll have something to do with whether they pay Shakur more after that. But Shakur is willing to gamble with, I know y'all are willing to give me $3 million minimum for 6 fights or whatever it was, 3 years, whatever it was. But I'm willing to take my chances over here with the Saudis. And Eddie is willing to take a waiver out on Shakur because I'm sure he's getting Saudi money fronted to him to pay Shakur for 2 fights, and they'll see where it goes. If they beat William Zepeda, I'm sure they'll have momentum into a possible, they'll try to throw money at Tank or wherever, and they'll try to use this project to get some momentum behind Shakur. And that's all it is. And of course they're willing to pay. Of course they are. I mean, it shouldn't be surprising to people that Shakur signed with Matchroom. slash Saudi. But 135 is a mess. Let's highlight that real quick before we move on. Because you have Tank, and Tank's not willing to fight the fights, of course. And Tank was willing to fight Loma, and we know why. It's an aging out process. Now we're willing to do it. He's 36, 37 years old, whatever. We're willing to fight the fight now. And Loma's saying, I'm not ready till 2025. Williams Zepeda saying, I'm not ready for a title fight till 2025. Who knows what Baranchik is doing? Tank's not willing to fight the fights. The guys aren't willing to fight Shakur. And in the process, Shakur is not building off of that, being ducked and not marketing that correctly. He's saying he doesn't care about the fans and the fans' opinion. And on top of that, he's putting people to sleep. He's not putting opponents to sleep. He's putting people to sleep. So 135, once again, a talented division at the top, but nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. And it's sort of, Tank is the image of this division now. Tank is sort of, as Loma has become a once per year fighter, Tank has sort of become the face of this division and backed into the top spot without actually doing anything in the division. And he gets away with it because he's got enablers, and the American journalists are his enablers. American boxing fans are his enablers. And we pointed out why American boxing, if you know one thing about history, every empire is destroyed from within. It's not from the outside. It never happens from the outside. It's from within where it's destroyed. So I very much do not like when people say, well, it's just the world catching up. That's all that's happening. When you see Japan overtaking America, when you see Mexico almost have as many titles as America, when you see bigger fights happening outside of America, it's just the world catching up. That's part of it. It's part of it. The same thing's happening in basketball, right? That's part of it. But it only explains part of the picture. When you look at the bigger picture on a macro level, it's we suck. It starts from the bottom. American boxing fans aren't intelligent enough to know their history and know that these guys aren't performing to a level that they should be performing to. So we're enabling them. Our bar has been set so low for these fighters that the fighters are going to match. This is psychology, fellas. It's human psychology. People are going to live up or down to your expectations of them. So the fighters are living down to your expectations of them. The power brokers are taking advantage of you. They've psyoped you. They've dumbed you down over years to not expect much of American fighters. But what has happened is, look, we stick around. We're gluttons for punishment, but people have left and they continue to leave. And this exodus continues. So our market continues to shrink. The universal market continues to get bigger. And our fighters continue to live down to our expectations of them. And Tank is the face of that. He's the face of that. He's the face of a guy who, of a model where our fighters just don't live up to their potential. They just don't. They're not expected to do great things. They're expected to be average. And while they're being average, they still get the accolades of being first ballot Hall of Famers. You've seen it. Like, once again, Roberto Duran glove. These dudes always throw Roberto Duran's name around with Tank. Tank versus Roberto Duran. Mythical matchup. Who wins? And dudes are like, Roberto Duran doesn't last 8 rounds with Tank Davis. Tank Davis puts Roberto Duran to sleep. And these dudes are just dumb. They're dumb. And that's our market. That's our market. And 135 is really the personification of that right now. You've got the face at the top who continues to live down to the expectations of the American market. Fighters at the top aren't fighting unification fights. They're somehow in the same room with each other, but not making eye contact. It's weird. Oscar saying he's willing to do Shakur versus Williams Zepeda, and then the next minute he's saying he's not ready. We're willing to do Baranchik fight. Well, what happened to that one? Tank continues to get away with fighting the likes of Frank Martin, Hector Luis Garcias of the world, Raleigh Romero's, and nobody ever asked, did they send a deal to Shakur? Did anybody send a contract from Tank's side? Every other division, fellas, every other division, the A side of the division catches heat if the fights don't happen. Look at what's happening with Canelo right now. We're going to talk about Benavidez and his team and the short bus stuff that's going on there later on. But one thing we know is perception is everything. And the perception is Canelo is ducking Benavidez because he's the A side. And as the A side, you're supposed to go out and make the fight. But with Tank, it does not work that way. And I don't know why. And nobody's answering questions as to why that is. Why are they not sending offers to the top fighters? Why is that not happening? Well, you sent it to Loma. Why didn't they send it 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago? Now, all of a sudden, conveniently, they're going to send a deal to Loma. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. And they get away with it. They get away with it. It's part of the used car salesman that we'll talk about with Samson Luka Wicks later on with his 27 gold chains and the slick back hair. And he's talking with his hands and he's selling lemons on all these YouTube channels. It's a scam. It's a scam they're running. Instead of just fighting the fights, it's easier to just fight the fights. Imagine having to constantly lie. Constantly just lie to the market. And anytime somebody like me or whoever calls you out on it, you have to demonize these people because you can't just do the work. You can't just fight the fights. How many times has Leonard Ellerby come after me on Twitter? I had to block the dude. I had to block Steven Espinosa. These dudes are blocked on Twitter because they can't just do their job. They're too busy coming after me. Just do your job. Why are you worried about little old me? These are the most unimpressive people in the business world, and they always seem to gravitate towards the boxing world. Samson is an unimpressive dude. He's an unimpressive dude. Leonard Ellerby, unimpressive dude. Steven Espinosa, unimpressive. These are unimpressive, unserious people. And American boxing fans seem to be in awe of their work. I don't get it. Saludos to Jesus M. Shout out to you, Nando. Keyshawn not dodging anyone. Norfolk wants all the fights, win or lose. We know regardless, Keyshawn bring all in fighters to deep waters and will entertain us. Boots versus Brian Norman Jr. proper. And that's another one. Thank you, pugilism. Great segue. Boots Norman Jr. You got Boots' side saying, we sent an offer. We sent a lucrative offer. And, we want to make that fight. And then Norman Jr.'s team is saying, no, we're ready to fight. And we're ready to fight. We took the offer. We agreed to fight you. And Boozy Ennis is saying, no, we're not going to do it until a unification or undisputed. And you see both sides of this. And you're like, can y'all dudes just make a fight? Y'all just make a fight. And this is 147. We talked about 135, 147. These are the glamour divisions, fellas. 160, 147, 135. Historically, middleweight, welterweight, lightweight. And these dudes are just somehow evading each other. And then they go to the public and they try to make their pitch that I want to make the fight, but he doesn't want to make the fight. And the other side is saying the opposite. And then what happens? Dudes go on the Boxing Voice and say, Boots is ducking him. And no, Norman Jr. is ducking him. And then these dudes fight with each other. And it's divide and conquer. And it's like, why can't, look, fellas, just calm down. Call both of them out. How about we do that? Call out the whole division. This division has been, once again, a division that has been pitched as a talent-rich division the past decade with a bunch of dudes somehow evading each other. And if Boots can't get the fight, man, for the love of God, look, I'm tired of hearing it. Move up to 154. If he can't get a fight with Emilio Estevez Stanionis, move up to 154. If he can't get it with Norman Jr., move up to 154. And I got to be honest, man, like when I hear Norman Jr. call out Boozy Ennis, I kind of believe him based off the track record. I kind of believe him. For the love of God, man, can these dudes do something? Can you do something? Can one of you fight the other one without having to hear about this constantly? Can somebody at 135 at the top, other than Lomachenko, historically fight somebody without having to hear about all this stuff? I don't know, man. Like it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And they want me to get on here. They want us boxing fans to get on here and blame it on one side or the other. I'm saying y'all all get y'all stuff together. They want y'all going on these channels with these other low IQ callers, right? And they just start yelling at each other. No, Boots is to blame because Norman Jr. don't want that heat. And then the other side will say, Boozy's lying, Boozy's lying. Can't y'all see y'all are falling into the traps? Can you not see it? I I, I don't know, man. Like I'm tired of it all. Shout out to Fotex, Nano Yamas, as I said. Baranchik, definitely the weakest champion. He is. Somebody please pick that belt off of him. And what happened to him? Like, what's going on? Who's gonna fight that fight? What's gonna happen? It's 135, man. Like, is Tank gonna fight Ryo? Is that what's gonna happen? Is that what's gonna happen? Yep, it's a 2-fight deal, and the second fight's supposed to be Zepeda. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes. He's gonna have to win that fight. The issue that Shakur has is he's not an entertaining fighter, so you really have to keep the O. That's the allure. The allure is he's one of the most unbeatable fighters in the sport. Other fighters don't want to fight him. And he kind of gives fighters that excuse because he's not entertaining. So fighters have that excuse to just say he's boring and he's not engaging and I'm just not going to fight that fight. And boxing fans truly don't care, to be honest. I mean, how many of y'all looking for the next Shakur fight? We know it's October 12th against Cordina, but how many of you are going to be locked in during college football, middle of the day on a Saturday, watching a fight from Riyadh and watching Shakur fighting a guy from 130, coming up in weight, coming off of a loss? How many of you are going to do that? How many of you are looking for Shakur? And that's going to be the trend today because we're going to get into Benavidez. Pause. Good Lord, pause. We're going to get into Benavidez talk. We're going to get into, relax. We're going to get into Benavidez talk in a minute. And by the way, live performance from Beyonce or Taylor Swift later on. And check that out, man. Roberto Duran. Signed Roberto Duran glove with a certificate of authenticity. So this is what we're looking at right now. Look at him. Look at him. So this is David Benavidez. Let me try to move this. Let's see if I could get this. That's wrong. That's wrong. There we go. That's fine. That's fine. This is David Benavidez, Mr. Glass. And this is him after fighting one fight at 175. And how many of you in the chat saw the Alan Dawson article, worldboxingnews.net? And once again, man, a lot of things in the boxing world leave me beside myself. And by the way, this is work from Mr. Yellow. Shout out to our Mr. T. He calls himself Mr. T on YouTube and Mr. Yellow on Twitter. But that's him. That's his work. And this is Benavidez after one fight at 175. And when Benavidez moved up to 175, it was pitched that he's daring to be great and watch what he does to Vodzik with a silent G. He's really gonna get his hands on Vodzik with a silent G and do a number on him and make a statement at 175. But in reality, what happens is he got busted up. He got busted up in a victory. And he won it clearly, but he didn't look good. I would argue he looked sloppy and poor in the second half of the fight. And maybe that's due to injuries, but that's part of it. And if you're getting busted up by a semi-retired fighter at 175, what's your future at 175? Can he make 168? And I would argue his whole aura at this point, and I'll back that up with facts in a minute, that his whole aura is Canelo and 168. And once again, I'll back that up in a minute by things I've been observing the past 24, 48 hours. Let's talk this first. And more American boxing journalist propaganda, and more American boxing fan propaganda, and a lot of PBC propaganda. Because one thing I know about PBC is nothing's done by accident. And the second thing I know is a lot of it's propaganda, a lot of it's smoke and mirrors. And we're seeing more of that with Benavidez. It was pitched to us that he's a boogeyman, that he's a monster, that he's the Mexican monster. It was pitched to us that he's one of the greatest fighters in the world, pound for pound, just an unbelievable fighter. In reality, what do we see? And look, weight bully, that's subjective. Because to me, how I view weight bully may not be the same as how other people view it. To me, if you make the weight class, you make the weight class. And if you've got a problem with guys moving up and down 30 pounds, guys rehydrating 30 pounds, rehydrating over 200 pounds for a super middleweight fight, then we need to change the rules. And until we do that, the guy's legally making the weight and he's got no positive tests. I got to assume he's doing it legally and he's doing it within the rules. So it is what it is. But pound for pound is a thing. It's a thing, and it's pound for pound. And one of the psyops that the American boxing journalists and these rating panels have been doing, and American boxing fans have been doing, is calling this guy a pound for pound fighter. And is that jiving with y'all in the chat? Is that jiving with y'all? Because what I see is a guy who's outweighing guys on fight night at 168. Once again, weight class business. As long as he's making the weight class for super middleweight, that's fine. That's good. That's fine. But pound for pound is a different thing. And it's subjective. And some people will say it doesn't mean anything, but it does. There's a reason that we talk about it. There's a reason that when people drop pound for pound lists, people get all worked up about it. It's a real thing. It may be theoretical, it may be subjective, but it's a real thing to people. They get worked up over it. And one of the marketing tools, one of the campaigns is to pitch your fighters as pound for pound. And they've been trying to pitch this guy as a pound for pound fighter when he doesn't have an impressive run at super middleweight. And he outweighs these guys 15 to 20 pounds on fight night. He doesn't look like a super middleweight. And the fight where he moves up to 175, he ends up in a wheelchair. In a wheelchair. And this isn't a real picture. This is Mr. Yellow's propaganda right here. Blame it on him. I didn't want to share this. Mr. T in the chat, he forced me to share this. I didn't want to. He forced me to. And the guy gets busted up. Messed up arm going in, right? He had messed up arm. And then he busted up his hands, and then he got broken ribs. Broken ribs. And is that the work of a pound for pound fighter to you? Is that the work of a dude who even belongs anywhere close to a pound for pound list? No, clearly it's not. By definition, clearly it's not. Clearly it's not. But it's not going to stop him. They're doing this thing, fellas, where the sky is clearly blue, but they're trying to get you to believe it is green. And let's go further. So the Alan Dawson article drops, worldboxingnet.com. I think that's what it's, worldboxingnews.net, I believe it's called. And it's a 50-paragraph article, as if anybody's going to read that. Nobody outside of a nerd like me is going to read that, because I read articles like I'm a dinosaur. I'm a nerd. And I'll read boxing articles, and I'll read them in their totality. And to me, the lead was buried 46 paragraphs deep. You had to go, I counted it. It's 46 paragraphs in. It's Benavidez is hurt. And he's not going to be ready to go till December 2024. So I'm like, what? Wait a second. What? I'm reading an article, and the article starts off, innocent enough. Al Heyman's back. He's back in the mix. He's back in the mix. And I just start laughing. He's back in the mix. No. Fellas, let's start there. And believe me, we're gonna break down all of this. We got time. We got time today. He's back in the mix. Look, I was told in February, March, around that time that Al Heyman, his mother passed away, and God bless, man. Like, rest in peace. You're empathetic, right? Because that's not good, and you want people to grieve in peace, um, and that's not good. Family situation, but how it's being pitched to you is clear propaganda. It's clear propaganda, and I would argue that Al Heyman has these people wrapped around his finger. I would argue that he keeps a very, very tight circle. One thing we know about this guy is he keeps things tight. And then um, he'll feed the journalists what he wants out there. And one thing, and I've seen Joe Habib talk about this, Ringside Reporter Live. PBC builds fights differently than other promoters have built fights in the past. They build it through rumorville. They build it through this guy's ducking that guy's ducking this guy, while at this simultaneously keeping their fighters safe, insulated, smoke and mirrors, right? And over time, it'll take years to develop, but they get people ramped up, divide and conquer, riled up, and they'll build them publicly. They'll build fights publicly through stuff like that. This guy's ducking that guy's ducking this guy, and keep that in mind, right? Al Heyman feeds his state-run media what he wants out there. And also what we've known about, you should know this about Al Heyman. I mean, we don't know anything about it, but you just do the math, right? Over time. He very much cares about what the public thinks about him. Very much. He's very much concerned about his image. These fighters have to sign things in which they can't speak publicly about certain things. He very much cares what the journalists are feeding the American public. And why that's important is when you read an article like this is clear propaganda. There's just no way that this guy went dark. They're trying to feed it to you in this article that his phones went dead. The home phone went dead. The phone in Cleveland, Ohio, the cell phone went dead, and nobody can reach this guy for 9 months. Nobody knows anything. And you see Rick Glazer report about this, right? That Al Heyman, we haven't seen him since December 17th, and nobody knows where he is. And of course, that's propaganda being fed to the public, because this is me talking. I'm not putting this on anybody in the chat. I'm not putting us on the co-host, none of that. This is me. This is my opinion of it. And you can call me a conspiracy theorist, call me whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. But my opinion on this is Al Heyman has been very much in the mix, but he knew publicly there were going to be tumultuous times for the PBC. Fellas, look at the schedule. March, Tim Tszyu versus Keith Thurman was supposed to be the fight. Then it ends up being Tim Tszyu versus Fundora. Canelo versus Munguia in May. Decent pay-per-view. But then you get Tank Davis versus Frank Martin. And then the next event will be Canelo fight versus Berlanga. 16-1 fight. And then the next one will be Tim Tszyu at the Caribe Royale. At the Caribe Royale in Florida. At the Caribe Royale in Florida, we're going to have the we're going to have the Australian fight the Russian in Orlando, the great Orlando, Florida. And that's the 5th fight. And finally, we get a free fight. It takes 10 months, but we get a free fight. And then in November, it's going to be Tank against God only knows who. Good Lord. God only knows who. I'm afraid to even see who they're going to roll out for this. And that'll be the 6th fight and maybe 2 fights in December. So you'll have 7 or 8 fights the whole year, and only 2 of them are free of charge. Free. Because it comes with your subscription, right? But this is where we're at. And I refuse to believe that this whole time Al Heyman's been out of the mix. The Cubas has been running it, not knowing where Al Heyman is. And now, all of a sudden, we're starting to get a schedule with some fights that come with the subscription, and Al Heyman pops up. I'm back. I'm back, and I'm here. The savior is back. The savior of boxing is back. It's all too convenient. These dudes do everything carefully. They coordinate everything. And the boxing fan always ends up getting ripped off in the process. That's the trend with the PBC. And that trend continues. I expect them to be more active in 2025. I expect them to, they did 18 fights in 2023, I believe. They're going to end up doing 6 to 8 this year. And I think they'll be somewhere in the middle of that next year with some free fights mixed in. So now that they're getting some footing, now that they've figured out this tumultuous times going against the headwind, Al Heyman's back in the mix. And what that tells me is he's been in the mix the whole time. He just didn't want the public perception that he can't get a handle of this. Imagine Eddie Hearn. Imagine Bob Arum dealing with something like this. Imagine having a schedule with only 6 to 8 fights. Most of them are pay-per-view. Imagine how the American market would go after those guys. But Al Heyman gets a pass. He gets a pass. He always gets a pass. And it's always, Al Heyman's very calculated. You never count him out. Never count him out. He's back there in his ranch in Cleveland, Ohio, playing 8D chess and carefully taking over the sport. And in reality, they were caught off guard with the Showtime deal. They did not adapt quick enough. In reality, probably should have went to the zone, but they're just not capable of doing that. They're just not capable of making other promoters rich. They're not capable of working with other promoters. You've seen that the past couple months that they are, but that's out of necessity, fellas. They didn't just roll out of bed one day and say, all of a sudden, I care about putting on good fights and reaching across the aisle for the consumer. They're doing it out of necessity until they get their footing back and it goes back to where they were. Likely Canelo stays over there because what did Canelo tell us on the Pound for Pound podcast this week? Al Heyman personally reached out to me and offered me the Berlanga fight. And Canelo said, F it. I'll take it. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. Give me whatever fight. So it was Al Heyman personally, who was somehow out of the mix at the time, but months ago offered Canelo the Berlanga fight. Was out of the mix, but somehow offered the face of boxing personally a fight while he was out of the mix. And once again, I'll speak to my concerns about Canelo becoming a PBC fighter now that he's over with the PBC. And you know what I mean when I say that. That's my concerns from the Canelo side. But it's where we're at with the PBC. They're getting their footing back. And once they get their footing back, you're going to go back to the mismatches. You're going to go back to, look at what you got, fellas. Canelo versus Berlanga, $89.99. Las Vegas screams PBC. It screams it. Canelo versus Berlanga, 16-1. And look, the Benavidez news that we're about to talk about does not take away from the fact that that is not good. And there was a way you could have rolled that out and kept Canelo busy in the meantime, because Canelo really has no peers. Talk about that too. There was a way you could have done that to where it was acceptable. But Canelo cares about the money right now. He has a high minimum. He wants to get paid for the concessions he made earlier on in his career. So now they're going to put on a 16-1 fight, $89.99, jack up the price, and put it in Las Vegas and gouge the market. That screams PBC. That screams Al Heyman is in the mix. That's what it screams to me. Caleb Plant on the undercard fighting Maga Magumbi, whatever his name is. Raleigh Romero on the card. Rolando Romero, the worst title holder of all time. And I don't say that lightly. I don't say that jokingly. Just a terrible fighter. And Stephen Fulton Jr. is fighting underneath Rolando Romero on the prelim. Because of course. And once again, fellas, this all screams Al Heyman. This is all Al Heyman. They're willing to sacrifice fighters who have a potential future to maybe keep Canelo happy or whatever it is. I don't, it's gross incompetence. It's terrible marketing. It screams of some sort of pyramid scheme just getting investor money, and it's baffling though. Stephen Fulton Jr., when's the last time he's fought in Philadelphia, fellas? They had him in Minnesota, that venue that the journalists just love, the greatest venue in all of boxing. And then meanwhile, everybody's getting in for free to watch Stephen Fulton Jr., and it does a $51,000 live gate, and nobody watches it. Boots Ennis, who was a PBC independent contractor, hadn't fought in Philadelphia in 6 years before Eddie comes up with this genius idea that maybe I should put a Philadelphia fighter in Philadelphia. Amazing. Amazing idea. Al Heyman was too smart to come up with an idea like that. It's just, he's back there playing complex 8D chess that we're just not going to understand. And meanwhile, these fighters are wasting away in their prime. David Benavidez. For years and years and years, it was keep him safe from what I've seen anyway, right? And then to his own doing and to his credit, he said, yeah, I messed up there and I need to make it back. You know, drug abuse, lose the title on the scale, and can't complain that he wasn't in the undisputed mix. Can't complain. And he's worked his way back, and to his credit, he worked his way up to the number 2 and to a fight that's in demand with Canelo. But how in demand is it? Think about this for a second, fellas. Just think about it. Put on your critical thinking hats and just think about this for a second. Benavidez fights last year against Caleb Plant. And Samson Lukawicz goes on YouTube channels and admits to marinating that fight for 5 years. And once again, man, like I watch a lot of stuff when it comes to boxing, and I read a lot of articles, and just stuff just stops me in my tracks. And that was one of them. It's like, wait, what? You did what? Nobody else heard this? Did anybody else hear this? You did, excuse me, come again. You did what? You marinated Benavidez versus Caleb Plant for half a decade? Is that what I just heard? Wait a second. Rewind. Rewind it. Rewind. He did what? Wait, he really said that. And he marinated a fight that did for 5 years and was openly bragging about it. And this is the part about Samson, and this is what tells me that, look, snake oil salesmen, they're good salesmen, but they're not smart. They're not intelligent. So you'll catch them. You'll catch them at times, right? And he'll say things out loud that he shouldn't be saying, but he's not. And he'll do it in a braggadocious way, not knowing that, dude, you're not supposed to be saying this. If you're running a scam, you should not be letting us know you're running a scam. So he brags about marinating a fight for 5 years that did under 100,000 pay-per-view buys. Dude, 5 years ago I would have done that. What are we doing? And then we go further, and he fights Boo Boo Andrade, or Andrade, or Andrade, whatever you want to call him. And it does like 49,000 pay-per-view buys. If that, because we don't even know if they're lying about that. But either way, these pay-per-views did terrible. And then let's take it further. David Benavidez in June fights on Tank Davis's undercard. So a co-main. We're going to call it a co-main, guys. He's fighting on the co-main. No, he's fighting on the undercard. He's fighting underneath another fighter, right? So yeah, that's the undercard. So he fights on the undercard. And I'm supposed to believe that a dude who can't crack 100,000 pay-per-view buys and is fighting on an undercard is all of a sudden the B-side of the biggest fight in boxing. And it's not only that. Let's go further. So Alan Dawson drops this article, and then buried 46 paragraphs deep is Benavidez. This whole time we thought Benavidez was angry and beside himself, and Samson was beside himself. And once again, this is Samson's stupidity, because this shouldn't even be in the news cycle right now. If you're a competent promoter, you bury this. You don't tell journalists this. if you're a competent promoter. Sampson's out there. Benavidez is out there. His dad's out there saying, why isn't Canelo fighting us in September? Why won't he fight us in October? Look at the duck. He's such a duck. Oh my God, he's such a duck. This guy's the worst thing ever. He's literally Hitler. Buried in this article, and to Alan Dawson's credit, there's a hyperlink on paragraph 46. He drops this article because I'm wondering as I'm reading the article, wait a second, why isn't this its own article? This is the lead. Who cares about this fake propaganda about Al Heyman being back in the mix or Pacquiao is going to fight Matteo Barrios? Nobody's looking for Pacquiao anymore. I mean, it's done. It's done. And once again, what a PBC move, right? To wheel Pacquiao out there after looking terrible in the exhibition match, pushing 50 to fight Matteo Barrios, as if Matteo Barrios shouldn't be in better fights. Another Al Heyman move. But to Alan Dawson's credit, hyperlink, I clicked the hyperlink, August 14th. It's like, wait a second, August 14th was 8 days ago. Why haven't I heard anything in the news from content creators? Nobody on Twitter, nobody on boxing Twitter is talking about that. This dude has broken ribs. Why is this important? It's important because we're catching snake oil salesmen in the process of trying to scam you. Because they're saying September, October, Canelo's ducking us. Oh my God, he's ducking us. He's ducking us. And now they're saying in the same, dude, they're saying it. You should have just not said anything. This is the ineptitude of this team. Dude, Sampson, can you just stop doing interviews? David Benavidez's team, David Benavidez, he's the guy. He runs the team. So he needs to get someone in marketing to come on board and be the bad guy and tell everybody, look, y'all all need to shut up. Everybody shut up. I'm hiring this marketing director to do all the interviews for us. It's going to be the only person who talks. I'll talk when I'm ready to talk as well. We're all going to be on the same page. This dude is saying the quiet part out loud. That's how stupid he is. Sampson Luka Wicks with his slick back hair, hopping off the used car lot, selling lemons, again, is outing himself. And saying, over here, he's saying, Canelo's ducking us for September, October. Why isn't he ready? We're ready. We're willing to take $5 million. We're willing to take $5 million minimum and give him the rest. We're willing to fight him in Antarctica, wherever he wants to fight. We'll fight him in his backyard in San Diego. And then the next article pops up. They're not ready till December 14th because the dude has broken ribs. And it's not only that you're catching snake oil salesmen in the process and that they're stupid enough to out themselves. It highlights, because people will say, talk about boxing. This is boxing, fellas. Talk about the fights. It affects the fights. Why in the world are these American boxers? I understand how they get scammed. They're young. They don't really know much about money. And, they got a bunch of just terrible people, like low value people who just aren't that smart. They're just broken into the boxing world. In the boxing world, like I said, it seems to attract greasy, like unimpressive people who somehow just get a hold of power. And then these young fighters get taken advantage of. And for whatever reason, some of these fighters just can't break out of that. Steve Full Jr., David Benavidez, they can't break out of it. But I feel bad and empathetic for the fighters in the process. But in the other parts, I don't, because you could have broken free from that by now. And Benavidez is one of those guys. But it's a clear trend here, fellas, of just an inept team all over the place who can't get it together. And they wonder why they're not stars. What do you mean? Like, I don't understand. What do you mean you wonder why you're not a star? You blame the market. You blame this fighter for not fighting you. Dude, you should have been a star without Canelo. You could have been a star without Canelo. You could have done it already. And if you were, it would have boxed him into a fight. Holding on to your belt would have helped you get the fight. You couldn't do that either. But it's constant contradictions. It's constant. No, we're going to politic the WBC. Oh, the WBC won't do anything. We're not going to do that anyway. They'll say one thing in Spanish, one thing in English, one thing on this YouTube channel, one thing on that YouTube channel. And none of this changed the fact, fellas, because once again, they're going to come after me. A couple of days ago, I was a Canelo hater. Now I'm going to be a Canelo nut hugger. That's just how it works, right? And whatever. I don't care. Whatever. None of this excuses the fact that, and this is once again Al Heyman written all over. They're fighting Berlanga, and that was acceptable because we've talked about, if done right, it would have been acceptable because we talked about how Canelo really doesn't have peers except the manufactured one. I know y'all remember the news cycle 3-4 years ago, how he's ducking Charlo. I remember when this dude signed to fight Bivol, and dudes were saying he's fighting Bivol because he's ducking Charlo. And I'm once again taken aback by it. Once again, just caught like, oh my, what? He's ducking Charlo? Jamal Charlo to fight Dimitri Bivol. Is that what you want me to believe? And it's the dumbed down American market. They've been psyoped for years, fellas, and they can't get out of it. The harder part of education is not learning, it's unlearning what you're taught. You have to unlearn all the junk food, all the fast food, all the terrible things they put in your head. And boxing fans just can't get out of that. They can't get out of that funk. They can't unlearn these things. They've been psyoped. They've been psyoped to talk like power brokers. They've been psyoped to be empathetic of power brokers. They've been psyoped to believe that fighters who don't take on tough fights, who look better, are better than the fighters who take on tough fights and may not look as good in these tough fights, but they'll value eye test over resume. And it's all smoke and mirrors. That's the American boxing market is full of just smoke and mirrors. This dude's got broken ribs. Have we talked about that? This dude has broken ribs from the Vodzik fight. I don't even see, did Vodzik catch this dude with hellacious body shots? Did Benavidez hit Vodzik in the body so hard that his ribs started hurting and breaking? Where did this come from? This dude got busted up so bad, he messed up his hands, he hurt his arm, he broke his ribs. Against Vodzik with a silent G, fellas. And this is the baddest man on the planet. Dude, Espinoza at 126 is more of a monster than this guy. I can tell you that. I can tell you that. This is your monster? I can't believe it. But going back to the round table last night, and Steve Kim brought it up, and I'll circle all the way back to it. This is the main point I wanted to make today. And it was a great point, and I've been alluding to it for a while. Some of these fighters are all fluff. It's all media manufactured stuff. And how do I know this? And this is the main thing I took from that article. The timing of it, everything. It's conveniently dropped at the same time that the 89.99 news is dropped. And what did you have when 89.99 news was dropped? You had the same idiots come out there. And look, they had a point. They had a point to do this. But they always go for the low-hanging fruit, right? It's Fire Stick Boys back outside. Fire Stick Boys are coming to fight. Oh, man, this Fire Stick for $89.99. Oh, my God. And then you had a million channels doing that, right? And then you had dudes calling into the Boxing Voice and, oh, my God, it's the end of the world. Oh, my God. And then, meanwhile, the story of the day is quietly dropped and buried 46 paragraphs in. And so once again, to this writer's credit, he dropped this article on its own. It's not really buried, to be honest. He dropped it on his own 8 days ago, titled Benavidez is hurt. He's not ready till December. He has broken ribs. This is Samson saying this. This isn't conspiracy theories. This is Samson saying he's not ready till December. He's got broken ribs. And I'm thinking to myself, why would he say this? Because nobody's even talking about this. Nobody even cares. Everybody's on Canelo's ducking Benavidez. So why would you, as the promoter of the guy who is in perception being ducked, say that, no, we're not ready till December? Why would you even say that? Just quietly wait till December. Why? Because nobody's looking for Benavidez. Nobody's looking for him. And how do I know this? Because I go to the article 8 days prior and nobody's talking about it. And there are no content creators talking about the fact that Benavidez has broken ribs and he couldn't fight in September, October anyway, so he wasn't on the time frame. And Canelo was telling you Al Heyman himself offered me the Berlanga fight. And once again, it highlights how Al Heyman does not look out for his fighters. If Al Heyman was truly looking out for Benavidez, he would try to force the fight on Canelo. But he'd rather, because Canelo's a much bigger name, service Canelo than Benavidez, and he'll use Benavidez as a pawn. He won't help Morrell Jr. get the Benavidez fight. He won't fight Stephen Fulton Jr. in Philadelphia. As an independent contractor, he won't fight Boots in Philadelphia. He'll have Stephen Fulton Jr. on prelims. Not in Japan where he belongs. The market is in Japan. He was trying to stop Stephen Fulton Jr. to begin with to go in Japan and make $2 million and fight in front of people who actually care about him and will clap for him after a loss, after a brutal loss. And this is your genius. These are the geniuses of the boxing world. You realize the ineptitude of that? How this shouldn't even be, we shouldn't even be talking about we shouldn't know if this dude was properly promoting his fighter. We shouldn't know that he has broken ribs. And while the perception is Canelo is ducking Benavidez, this dude outs himself stupidly. And unfortunately, the boxing world is so stupid in America that they're not even catching on to this. They're still out there thinking that Canelo is ducking Benavidez for September. That's how stupid this whole world is, fellas, from the top to bottom. From the top to bottom. We're just, American boxing is just stupid. If I could just sum it up, it's just dumb. Dumb. And it goes back to the fact it's not that the world is catching up. It's this empire is being destroyed from within. This American boxing empire is being destroyed from within. But the main point here is, and it leads to Steve Kim's point last night, is nobody's looking for Benavidez. And how do we know that? It's not only the pay-per-view buy. It's not only that he's on an undercard. And they tried to build it right as, look at how much we care about the consumer, that we'll put Tank and David on the same card. And the PBC guys on Twitter are like, yeah, we care about quality control. Yeah, look at what they're doing for the market. Fellas, it's out of necessity. They don't have the dates. And this dude can't sell. They can't lose money on him being the main event. He can't sell. But we'll take it further. Look at these articles. 9 days old. Nobody's talking about it. Lance Pugmire, fellas, go to Lance Pugmire's account on Twitter. If you're watching this on Twitter, which you got 100 of you right now, go on Lance Pugmire's, because you can listen to this and scroll at the same time. Go on Lance Pugmire's tweet last night, his article last night. When I checked it last night, it was 4 hours old, 5 hours old. It had 5 likes. Benavidez is tagged in it. Not even Benavidez is liking it or reposting it. 1 repost, 5 likes. This article right here, the one I've been referring to from 2 days ago, nobody's talking about it because nobody's looking for Benavidez. It's a sad part about this. These are exciting fighters, fun fighters, marketable fighters. Benavidez seems like a nice guy, beautiful family, marketable guy, but it's sad what they've gone to. Everything's been about Canelo. Everything's been false marketing. Everything's been a scam. They can't get on the same page with anything. He's got inept, small, sad, low-value people guiding his career. And it matters because it affects our fights. It affects us being able to build stars in America that will trickle down to everybody in success in the American boxing market. And the people who call this stuff out for what it is get demonized. Stop spending time on me, dude. I'm just a mid-level boxing channel. That's what I am. Spend more time going after the people who are giving you crappy fights. Why are you wasting time on me? Go talk to them. Why is Steven Espinoza coming after me? Leonard Ellerby coming after me? Samson Lukawicz? They should be focused on their fighters. Stop focusing on me. I blocked you because I don't want to hear it. I want you focusing on where you need to be focused on. Build your fighters. This isn't it. You're going to have him in a tune-up in LA on December 14th. A stay busy fight. And you're going to have us believing that you really want the Bivol versus Better Biev winner next year. We know that's cap. We've been following this career. And it's sad when you see this because you see articles about Benavidez that should be big news. Anybody else breaks ribs, fellas, people care. Any other named fighter, we hear about it, they care. Bam Rodriguez breaks ribs, we care. Anaway breaks ribs, we care. Usyk, these guys. Benavidez isn't even close to that level, and that's the sad part. He breaks ribs, nobody cares. We have a scandalous story here to where they're trying to sell you that he's trying to fight Canelo September, October, and they get caught because I can't get over this. I can't get over the fact that they outed themselves. Nobody's looking for Benavidez, Samson, and that's due to you. But the positive of that is nobody cares that this guy's not fighting till December, so you can continue to sell and to continue to attach him to Canelo, that Canelo's ducking him in September, October. Canelo's ducking him for the fall. You can continue to do that, and we know we're just going to have to wait for an opponent till December. You can pitch it that way, but this dude is outing himself. We got busted up against Vodzik. He showed a lot of heart, but we got busted up. We got broken ribs. We can't go till December. Wait, what? What? Dude, wait a second. Follow-up question. And can journalists please learn this? Follow-up questions. Journalists, please learn this. If a dude tells you that he marinated a fight for 5 years and it does less than 100,000 buys, the follow-up question is, and you don't even have to be scandalous about it. You can politely ask, do you think it was worth it? Because the pay-per-view buys say less than 100. You can be respectful about it. It doesn't have to get to that. And then this one, the clear follow-up question was, wait a second. He's not ready to go till, can you clarify that? He's not ready to go till December 2024 at the earliest? Yeah, that's right. So wait a second. You over here were saying that you're trying to negotiate a fight for Canelo against Canelo for September, October. What happened? What's the discrepancy here? Did you just learn about the broken ribs months later? What's the discrepancy? No follow-up. No follow-up question. So we're just left wondering once again, this team is just, it's a mess. And nobody should be surprised. And a part of it, man, like a part of it, and this is sad to say, a part of it kind of enjoys Canelo messing around with them. Sad to say. But a part of it is like, I'm not going to give you your retirement fund. You're a mess. Like this whole thing is a mess. Your team is inept. Like, get it together. Why is your advisor advising me to fight Berlanga? Why isn't he advising me to fight you? And maybe, possibly. And once again, I'm very skeptical of anybody who's, when it comes to this Canelo Benavidez thing, 100% Canelo or 100% Benavidez. There's certainly blame to be assigned to both sides, and I don't know what the percentage is with that. And the perception is going to be, whether you like it or not, it's Canelo's fault if this fight doesn't happen because he's the A side. And I highlighted that earlier. That's how it works in the boxing world, except for Tank Davis. And that speaks to the propaganda coming from the PBC. And that speaks to how successful they are with the propaganda, because boxing fans will parrot that. And they'll repeat it. But this team is a mess. And a part of me is like, this dude's doing a combined 100,000 pay-per-view buys, whatever he's doing, and he's on an undercard, and I'm supposed to be like broken up that this fight's not happening. A part of me is like, yeah, Canelo, tell him to go to hell. They're a mess. They're a mess. This is a mess. What is this? From top to bottom, it's both corruption and incompetence. Because a competent promoter would not even bring up that the dude can't fight till December due to injuries while he's over here on another channel, another website saying Canelo is ducking Benavidez for September, October. I can understand how Canelo could see this as a clout chase and say, you're not going to chase off of my clout. It's not going to happen. I'm not going to give you your retirement fund. I'm not going to make you, I'm not going to give you generational wealth while you're over here behaving like this. Tell your man with his 27 gold chains and his slick back hair to stop talking. A part of me kind of enjoys that. Damo01SS, $5 super chat. PBC can make step aside deals for Canelo, but won't leverage that to force a Benavidez fight. Al knows what he's doing. Matchmaking isn't a coincidence. The whole thing's a scam over there. It's all smoke and mirrors. And the sad part about that is it would be easier to just make fights and see what's what. But they feel the need to run this constant scam in every division, constant scam of keeping fighters insulated while at the same time constantly whining that they're not on pound for pound lists and constantly whining that they're not rated correctly in divisional rankings and constantly whining that you're racist because you don't see this guy over here when he should be up here. It's a constant divide and conquer. And it's hard to sell this guy as the B side of the biggest fight in boxing when this stuff is going on. And I wonder if they're even trying to make the fight. It gets to that point, fellas. And that's hard. Like, you would say, like, what's the motive of that? I don't know. This team is so inept that I don't know what they're thinking. Why wouldn't they want a Canelo fight? Why would they just want a clout chase? You could argue that they don't think they can win the fight. Maybe. But I don't think Benavidez is wired that way. I think Benavidez does think he can win the fight. I just think these guys have terrible, low-value people around them who aren't looking out for the better interests of their career, particularly long-term, and they're trapped in this. And they're being lied to. And they're being lied to by multiple people. And they don't know up from down at a certain point. And then they go to the public and they start to blame people who have nothing to do with the situation because they're confused. And that could be where we're at with Benavidez. Benavidez could very much think that the sky is green, that Canelo's ducking him and Canelo's ducking him for September, October, while people are telling me he can't fight till December. I don't know what it is. But one thing I know is the sad part about this is what Steve Kemp brought up last night, what I brought up in the past, is nobody's really looking for Benavidez. That's what this proves, fellas. Go on Lance Pugmire's X feed. Go on it. Nobody's looking at that article saying Benavidez is back December 14th in LA. It's crickets. It's crickets. Why? Because they know he's not fighting Canelo. It's crickets. It's his whole aura. 168, Canelo. 175. Nobody cares about this dude. Nobody's talking about this article, and I'm wondering, man, like, I see the article. I'm scrolling through it in the morning. I think that was yesterday morning, Thursday morning. And this article is 14 hours old, and nobody's talking about it. It's like, wait a second. What is happening? Why is nobody talking about the fact that this dude's got broken ribs? They're all talking about 89.99, 89.99, Fire Stick boys. The Fire Stick boys are out here. We're going to go after the Fire Stick. We're Fire Stick. And nobody's talking about the big story that this dude's got broken ribs. And he can't fight Canelo in the fall anyway. And nobody cares. And part of it is the clicks, and this is what people get confused about. The clicks, the AdSense money, it's all behind anti-Canelo stuff. And D-Style has explained this in the past. These dudes don't have access to Canelo. But they have access to these dudes who are considered peers of Canelo. So the game is to get access to these people and keep access with these people. and then drive up this divide and conquer thing that Canelo is ducking this guy and that guy and that guy. And in reality, these guys aren't peers of Canelo. In reality, Canelo hasn't had a real peer post Golovkin and post 2020, 2021 undisputed run. I wouldn't even argue Bivol is a peer. It's a different weight class. And to me, Bivol beat him clearly. And I think if they fight 10 times, that Bivol would beat him. That's just me. That's just me. Everybody can have their own opinion on that. But he doesn't really have a peer 168 down. What do Janabek and Billy, really? Pacheco, come on. And Benavidez has been viewed as a peer. And I do think he is. But at the same time, I wonder when I see nobody caring about the fact that this dude has broken ribs, nobody reposting or liking an article saying he's returning December 14th. And this article was dropped 9 days ago. The previous article that was hyperlinked in paragraph 46 of the article that I thought was buried, but that I hit the hyperlink and was like, all right, credit to the writer. He wrote about this 9 days ago. But this is the first I'm hearing about it. And this news is 9 days old, fellas. This news that this dude has broken ribs and was not ready till December anyway is 9 days old. And nobody's talked about it in 9 days. Do this project, fellas. Like, do the homework. Go to Lance Pugmire's article last night and you'll see. It doesn't have likes. It doesn't have reposts. Nobody's reading that this dude's back December 14th. Go to the Alan Dawson article 9 days ago. Nobody's talking about it. Also do this homework. How many content creators are talking about the fact that Benavidez is banged up and not returning, couldn't return till December? How many? I know D-Style, I know Beeb, I know myself, and I know Ring IQ. That's the only dudes that I know of that are really talking about this. So what's happening? Are they trying to bury the fact that this team is incompetent or scandalous and scamming the market? Or is it what I think it is? And it's a mixture of both, but is it more so that nobody really cares? Nobody really cares about the dude. And it's sad to say, man, like I wish people did. That's the sad part about this is I wish people did. I wish we had American stars. There's no way. There's no reason for me to cheer against Benavidez. You don't roll out of bed saying, I'm just going to hate this dude forever. The dude gives you reasons to like him. You like him. Dislike him. You dislike him. I like Stephen Fulton Jr. I want to like Benavidez. I want to like Tank. These are exciting styles. There's no reason for me to dislike these dudes. And people will try to scam you on that and say, you just dislike these guys because you're racist. You got tiki torches in your closet. Where's your David Duke poster? It's not that, man. Like, for the love of God, can you wake up? Can y'all stop working so hard to demonize people that are telling you the sky is blue? It's clearly blue. Fellas, it's blue. You see that, right? Like, it should be obvious at this point what's going on. No, I think it's green and you're racist. No. Whatever. I got my baby back, baby. I got my baby back, baby. Benavidez will be back soon. It's Ribgate, right? It's Ribgate. They work so hard, fellas. They work so hard to scam you. And it's from the boxing fans on up to the journalists, to the power brokers, to the fighters. Instead of it'd be easier for you to just put in the work. You wouldn't have to work so hard at scamming the market and then demonizing us for calling it out. The few of us willing to call it out. The few of us willing to be called racist, because who the hell cares if you think I'm racist? I don't care. Do whatever you want. I'm not worried about what these dudes are saying. Do what you want. Do what you want. You're going to call me whatever you want to call me anyway. So I might as well say what I want to say. Who cares? But it would be easier for you to just make sense, to think critically. It would make sense for you to just fight the fights as a fighter. It would make sense for you as a power broker to just put on the fights, because you would accidentally create stars like you've done in previous generations. But everything is a scam. Everything's smoke and mirrors. I can't get over the fact that this dude outed himself. I can't get over the fact that this dude has a promoter that's so incompetent and so greasy, but he's so incompetent that nobody needed to know that this dude had broken ribs. Nobody needed to know that he couldn't return till December. You already had the play. You already had the perception win that Canelo was ducking Benavidez September and October. And you guys were ready. You were ready. But then you, out of left field, doing an interview, and you're doing too much. You're doing too many interviews. Shut up. That's what I'll be telling you if you were guiding my career. You go out and say, no, we're not ready till December. What? Why would you even say that, number one? But what? And no follow-up question. Excuse me? You're not ready till December because of what? Broken ribs. Excuse me? What? And we're left just thinking he had to have gotten broken ribs because nothing in the article points out if he had broken ribs going into the fight or during the fight. Nobody's following up with questions. Nothing's happening. Can a journalist like this would be my as a boxing fan, because I'm not a journalist. I don't want to be. As a boxing fan. And why do we feel the need as boxing fans to constantly do the work that journalists are not doing? It's just because they're not doing the work and we want information. So can one of you journalists do your job? You're getting paid to do this. Can one of you ask if this dude got broken ribs during the fight or before? And can you ask Benavidez or Sampson to confirm this? Because this is quite unbelievable. And can you ask Sampson with his 27 gold chains if, why were you saying he's ready to fight Canelo, and now you're saying he wasn't ready to fight Canelo? He can't go till December 2024. Because somebody please ask. This whole thing is just a dumpster. Like, it's just a big dumpster fire. From the top down, this highlights it. It highlights multiple things. It highlights nobody's looking for Benavidez. Nobody's talking about this stuff. It highlights how bad American boxing journalism is, that nobody's asking any follow-up questions. And it highlights how incompetent this team is, that this dude should be a star right now, Canelo fight or not. And he's not. And it's because of stuff like this. And that's why we're talking about it, because it affects boxing. It affects the fights we get. Disgusting stuff, man. I'll be back. Peace. God bless.